All right, welcome back to the 24th floor. It's time to talk Ole Miss. Normally, we would split these segments up between hoop and football, but today we got to touch base on both.
Yes, the Ole Miss basketball program seems to be finding more stability, which we will get into. But the big news of the week is our guy, Trinidad Chambliss, his NCAA hearing. For the latest on all things Ole Miss, we bring in a frequent friend of the program. He's been talking Ole Miss football with us all season long. You can't talk Ole Miss athletics without him. He's the host of the Locked On Ole Miss podcast, which you can catch right here on the 24 Plus YouTube or anywhere you get your podcast. Welcome again to the program, Mr. Stephen Willis.
Yeah, just nothing going on. It's just a random January talking sports. How you guys doing?
Man,
Great.
We're good. I would say we're busy, but that would be an understatement. Let's start, obviously, with probably the biggest news of the week. And obviously, it's Trinidad Chambliss.
Yes. Is he getting year 6, Stephen? What do you feel about that?
I will say this right now. I have never been more confident than I have been in this exact moment that Trinidad Chambliss will take the first snap for Ole Miss in 2026. Now, how are you going to get there exactly? That is kind of the question that you have to deal with. Will the NCAA, which that is the step that Trinidad is in currently, will the NCAA grant the appeal to give him immediate eligibility, or will the lawsuit happen? If it gets to the lawsuit, I have complete faith that it's going to he's going to win the case. But the NCAA, in my opinion, has a chance to save a little face here to the fact that, hey, you got a guy that signed multiple professional contracts in the G League trying to play college basketball. Yeah. Maybe that's the fight you need to go after, as opposed to going after somebody that had chronic tonsillitis in Division II a few years ago.
It seems like we do this every week where we're talking about players who are pros or are now in the NBA. We talked a lot about the Najee kid from Baylor, and now Alabama's doing it where they're getting a guy from the G League.
Yeah, but I saw the NCAA had already released a statement saying basically he'd already signed multiple contracts and that they didn't look like they were going to allow his eligibility. It's
a temporary restraining order. Yeah. I think he'll be able to play as soon as their next game.
Yeah, and I think the NCAA, tell me your take on this, Stephen. I think the NCAA has a real problem on their hands where the lawsuits pile up, the restraining orders pile up. At some point, you have to take a stand, draw a line in the sand, and say, this is what is and this is what isn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, it feels like that's a case that the NCAA can win. Yeah. Even in state court, it's like, hey, he signed a professional contract. The rules are clear. I mean, I get the fact that he probably wants to still make money and have the extra year and all of that stuff, but the rules for that it's clear. The situation with Trinidad, it actually, if you deny that and for some reason legal-wise this goes through, you look terrible, awful. In no way, if you are a professional in that sport, you should be able to play college sports. And nobody thinks that. So the NCAA has to pick and choose the battles that they're going to fight, and this seems like a home run, and this one over here seems like a loser. So they probably need to focus on the home run and just get the loser out of the way that they don't have to worry about.
Yeah, I would agree.
All right, so we'll put a bow in that on Trinidad. But the main thing we got to talk about is basketball. And Ole Miss, it seems like they started shaky, but then they started getting something going. They had 3 wins in a row in basketball, and then they finally dropped one to Auburn the other night. Stephen, what are you seeing from this Ole Miss basketball team?
They've gone to the point where they were trying to adjust to the American game and all that, and they were having chemistry problems early in the season. They kind of got that slowed, and now they're doing the Jekyll and Hyde thing. Yeah. And some nights they're very good, and then some nights the effort problems just rear their ugly head. I think it's all about a team kind of gelling and developing together. But listen, against Auburn last night, Chris Beard, for like the last 5 or 8 minutes, played a walk-on in the game over the bigs that normally play because of perceived effort issues. And that's one of those things. It's like, hey, you've got a game on Saturday in Rupp Arena. This probably isn't the best time to be doing stuff like that. But if Zach Day plays a significant role in Kentucky, I don't know how that looks. And they need James Scott. They need Malik Dia. They need the guys that were brought in to be the studs, the American players, if we're going to be honest about it. They need to bring their lunch pail and do what they need to do, because if Zach Day is playing, that is problematic for your front court. Now, I will say this. Ilias Kamerding playing much better. A.J. Storr much better. And Travis Perry is starting to shoot the lights out. But Ole Miss needs work on the front court, and they've got the talent. They just need to put it together.
This has been a thing, we've talked about this a couple times. As you've covered this college basketball season, I don't see it as much in football, but I've seen it a lot more in basketball. And that's high-level coaches frustrated about effort from kids that they've paid to bring in. You're seeing it at Memphis. You saw it at Ole Miss. You see it at Kentucky. You're seeing it at Arkansas. I mean, you see it all across the country where these kids are getting paid major dollars. And after these games, these coaches are saying, we're not showing effort. Why don't we have effort? Is that, I don't want to say that's what you might be seeing at Ole Miss, but has that not been a recurring theme that you're starting to see a trend of across the board?
You know, I haven't even thought about that, but you might be a little bit right. It could be a little bit generational, because back in the day of Dean Smith and Bobby Knight and all that, effort wasn't a problem because you were scared to death of your coach. Not necessarily going to be scared to death of the coach right now. And in many cases, especially in smaller schools, there might be players on the roster, like somebody at Wichita State or something like that, making as much money as the head coach is making. So at a very young age, the immaturity that you can see in the NFL or the NBA at that level, now it's 18, 19, 20-year-old kids. So, yeah, I can see that, but it could also be just generational with the fact that coaches aren't allowed to do what they were allowed to do. We have a guy that played for Bob Weltlich at Ole Miss back in the early 80s. And he referred to situations about effort. Tim Thomas is his name. And he was talking about significant emotional events. And what that is after you play like crap, when you get to practice the next day, you're going to have a significant emotional event because it was going to be bad for you.
I think what we're just kind of running into is the fact that these players can't be properly penalized. I mean, think about it. If they get like if you yell at them, like you said, where you have the fear of God in your heart, the players I'll just hit the portal. I'll just go somewhere else. Because every year we essentially have 1 year free agency. I mean, heck, bringing it back to football for a second, you would think that everything was great with Duke's quarterback, Darian Mensah. You would think that everything is fine. And then out of the blue, hits the portal. You know what I'm saying? At the last possible minute. So I think these coaches are always on a string where they have to be kind of delicate because these players will eventually will just hit the portal.
It's so different. It is. It trickles down to the high school level and then the middle school level. Yeah. Where, and I'm gonna say, and somebody's gonna get mad. It's the parents. The parents don't want Tommy and Sally yelled at. Don't be mean to Tommy and Sally.
But the parents also like that money.
But when they're young, they don't want anybody being mean to Tommy and Sally. So you can't coach effort. If a kid's not giving effort, how are you going to get that effort out? To Stephen's point, when I was in school, when we were in school, man, effort was never an issue because you were either going to run, you were either going to quit or run. What you going to do? You can quit, go home, or you're going to run, right? And so I think that's been the trickle-down effect. It's happened all over the place. And I'm hoping that some of these coaches that have been so frustrated about effort can start to send a message by playing walk-ons, Stephen.
Yeah.
Yeah, one thing that's interesting is the thing that's happened in the last 15 to 20 years that you've seen in sports is the inability to see the difference in coaching and criticism. And so many people are so quick to jump over to being a victim to where they will look at whoever their coach is and it's like, okay, he's just picking on me, when actually he's telling you could be a better player if this happened. He's trying to bring that out of you, but you can't see that because all you can see is somebody criticizing what you're doing.
Rich, who have you've been able to watch Ole Miss a couple of times. Who stood out to you on Ole Miss's team at this point in time?
Patton Pinkins. I mean, if we go back to the UGA game, he hit that go-ahead shot.
He's shooting lights out,
which
from what
was
I can tell.
crazy. He had a good night against Auburn. He had a good night against Mississippi State. He's a guy who, when I first watched Ole Miss, it was when they played Memphis. That was my first time on them. And when I first watched Ole Miss, I thought, Comerdine was going to be the guy. Comerdine reminds me a lot of Tyrese Halliburton, and I thought that he was going to be the man. But over the past couple of games that I've been able to watch, it's been really Patton Pinkins and A.J. Storr who have been the guys. And Pinkins is that guy, which I know we talk about it on the Memphis side. He's the guy who you put the ball in his hands and he's going to get you a bucket. He's going to be the one who you go to when the game is on the line. And I really like that. I would really like for Coach Beard to lean on him more. I know we talk about Keza. I know we talk about Comerdine. I know we talk about Travis Perry, like these guys, and Malik Dia. But Pinkins is the guy who I think they should continue to play through down the stretch because he's proven that he's made for these moments. I mean, I remember that UGA game, Ruben. I texted you when it happened. I was like, it was crazy. Incredible.
Yeah. Stephen, what are your thoughts? Do you agree?
I like Patton Pinkins. I think he's one of the better true freshmen in all of college basketball this year. I mean, he's doing extremely good things at an extremely young age. A.J. Storr is now coming off the bench for Ole Miss, and that kind of unlocked him a little bit. But let's be real about this. Unless Ole Miss can get a big man presence, they're not going to make the tournament. They're not going to go far at all. They are fine on the guard positions or out in the wings. They need a big man to step up. That's the reason that you saw the walk-on Zach Day out there. They have an effort problem of the big men right now. And if they don't get that fixed with the run that they're about to go on in the SEC, it could be lights out.
So, Stephen, I got to ask you, because the SEC is so good that you can arguably say it's the best conference in men's college basketball, would you say that every SEC win is a quality win? Because we can say the Georgia win is a quality win. I think we can say the Mississippi State was a quality win. Do you think every win is a quality win to where they could get into the tournament?
Every win left on Ole Miss's schedule is either at a 1 or a 2 when it comes to the net.
Okay.
There's no grenades left on Ole Miss's schedule. So if you win 10 total games, something like that, get to 10-8, you have as good a chance as anybody to get to the tournament. The problem is Ole Miss has a math problem right now. They're 3-3 going into it with a stretch of 6 games that are going to be very difficult. If you let 5 of those slip away, all of a sudden you have 7 conference losses, and that allows 1 more loss in the regular season. So Ole Miss has to get this figured out and get it figured out quick, or they're going to be in trouble moving forward.
I think part of the problem, and I know I might be sounding like a broken record on, I think the portal and NIL is creating part of the problem that people are seeing. Kids who are players who are playing in other leagues that have more gimme games, right? Or other leagues where, maybe that team you don't have to bring it every night to win every game. You're bringing in kids from all these different leagues and all these different areas and then trying to play them in the SEC and trying to get them to understand the expectation.
To buy in.
Yes, yeah. What's the expectation to win here? Like, what does it take to win at this level?
Especially when you're talking about the best conference in the country.
Some of these kids have no idea. They are learning on the fly. And that is, I think, part of the problem that the portal and NIL generation is creating, is that now your math problem, Stephen, is a real problem that they're going to have to figure out on the fly.
Yeah, and then, you talk about the international guys coming over from their leagues and then integrating into the American way and then the SEC style. It's just a crash course. And you just don't got a lot of time.
No.
But to Steven's point, I do agree that I think 10 wins should be enough to get in, just because the SEC is so good. So you're looking at, you got 3 wins now,
but
your magic number is 7
and you know this as well, Stephen. The 10 wins is enough as long as you're not on a losing skid on the back end.
Yeah.
That's true. That is true. But ideally, if you look at the schedule, the hard part of the schedule is about to happen. It's going to get a little bit easier on the back end. So if you get to 10 wins, you probably won a couple of games at the end to get there.
Cool.
And then hopefully, obviously, get a couple of wins in the SEC tournament to kind of build upon that. I feel good about Ole Miss. There's, like I said, I thought that they would be better at this point, but it's not like, it's just we're in a weird spot with the college basketball teams in our area, with Memphis in the middle of the pack of starting to kind of be on the rebound. Ole Miss is on the rebound. I like what I saw from Auburn. I think Auburn is a team. I was talking to one of our coworkers that for them, it's kind of like an underwhelming season because they lost their coach, Bruce Pearl, and they were a team that was constantly in the Final Four conversations or just kind of chomping at the bit of putting over the top. And then he leaves to go take a political career. And then his son takes over the thing. So it's kind of a Nepo baby hire, but you're kind of like relearning things. That win that Auburn got over Ole Miss was their first true road win.
Yeah, I mean, so I would say you're going to see a lot more parity, and not in a good way, in college basketball for the tournament this year. You're going to see a lot more teams like Ole Miss who are getting in but aren't having phenomenal seasons like you've had. I mean, Stephen, you've seen this. You look across the nation. Look across the nation. Like, it's not like you're looking up saying, man, like Purdue is phenomenal, right?
Yeah.
But Purdue is built on program. They're built on program, skill set, what they do. But when outside of that, you kind of look around and say, man, there's about 4 or 5 really good teams, and the rest of them are all just kind of fighting.
Middle of the pack.
Yeah.
But can we be honest about something? Now, I know we don't do say what anymore, but there's way too many teams in the March Madness tournament. Was it like 68 now? Ole Miss better get in the tournament if it's 68 teams.
But they will. I think, Stephen, to your point, I think they will, but I don't think that – I think the days of – I just think it's going to be a lot more parity, right? It's going to be a lot more parity. The lower seeds and the higher seeds – I mean, outside of those number ones and number twos, I think it's going to be a mixed bag.
Then if the tournament keeps expanding and it ends up being like 70 teams, you might as well just put the whole SEC in the tournament just automatically.
What do you see for them for this little stretch, Stephen? Like, which games are the games that they have to win?
They have to win their home games, all of their home games, because losing that game against Auburn, that means they've dropped Arkansas and Auburn at home. You can't do that and make it into March Madness traditionally. So Ole Miss is going to have to win their home games. And you have to pick out teams on the road that Ole Miss doesn't have a history of success at Rupp Arenas. Don't necessarily expect the W to come from there. But if it does, bonus. You need to find teams on the schedule that you can maximize, especially on the road. The win at Mississippi State and the win at Georgia, absolutely massive. Because of the lack of success that they're having in the pavilion right now. So we'll see. I don't have high hopes against Alabama. I don't have high hopes against Kentucky, but maybe you take Vanderbilt. They're on a skid right now. Yep. You kind of get them, but the SEC is just pretty good. You got to kind of have to take what you get.
Well, the Big 12's not bad either.
Yeah, you know.
The Big 12's not bad either.
And we come Houston, from Big 12 country, so.
Houston, I mean, I've watched those two play. They play defense.
Texas Tech.
Houston and Texas Tech play defense, and they are intense. So whoever comes out of this stuff has got to be ready to face teams like that. Those are gritty teams. All right, Stephen, we have kept you way longer than we were supposed to. We apologize for that. Where can people catch him? Rich, let them know.
Let them know. Catch-ups on the 24 Plus, YouTube, and anywhere you stream your podcast. Stephen, tell us what you're working on over there at Locked On Ole Miss.
We are following the transfer portal. Ole Miss currently has the number 2 transfer portal class by 24/7 Sports in the nation. We're following some couple of names that could be added to the class over the next week or so. And we are checking in on the eligibility issue with Trinidad Chambliss, which I've never in my life seen somebody so certain, everybody that you talk to, so certain that he's going to end up getting it than this. So we'll see where it goes because it's the NCAA, but they're pretty confident.
Portal Pete, always working. Portal Pete.
Hey, that's the name of the game anymore. All right, Stephen, thank you so much. Have a great rest of your day. You are much appreciated, sir.
All right, take care, guys.
All right, what's next, Rich? We talked a whole bunch of basketball, a little bit of football, a whole bunch of basketball, but we're not done with basketball yet. All right, welcome back. Now it's time to talk Tigers basketball, which can sometimes be a great conversation and sometimes be a depressing conversation.
And me and Ruben, we've been going back and forth for weeks, but we decided to add another person into the conversation. He knows Tigers basketball like the back of his hand. Yep. He is the legend, the man, the myth. He is Terry Davis with the Tri-State Defender, a frequent friend of the program. Welcome back. You just came off vacation, man.
I like that
vacation.
shirt,
I was working.
What? You what?
Yeah.
I saw you.
I was trying to get to Berlin, but UK said no. I couldn't go there. So, So I just went to Rio instead.
Yeah, I saw your Facebook. Your man was overseas.
Yeah,
Not the UK not letting you in.
man, look, man, I didn't know they needed a visa. I didn't know a brother
it was
needed
a
a
visa
visa.
thing.
Yeah. Who knew?
All right.
Oh, man.
So,
So, all right,
let's get to it.
Let's catch you up to speed. I mean, I know you've been paying attention to what we got going on in the Tigers basketball world. But let's start with the Temple game. Because, you know, that game's coming off of a loss to FAU. That was their first conference loss. They came out, they beat Temple, who was at the time tied for first in the AAC. They snapped Temple's 7-game win streak. The win that moved them into a 5-way tie for first in the AAC. Now, I was at this game, and what stood out to me, Terry, and I talked to Coach about this, was Curtis Givens led the team with 12 points, the high man. In fact, really quickly, let's hear what Coach Penny Hardaway had to say about that.
We have to do it by committee on this team. Obviously, Doug has had the most games where he's led us in scoring, but we have to do it by committee, and we have to be unselfish. And on this team, if we're being unselfish, it might be a different guy every night. We focus in on the things that are going to help us win, defensively, rebounding, sprinting back, talking, all the different things, guarding our yard. Then we got other things to worry about. Obviously, you would love to have a 20-point scorer or a couple 20-point scorers that you can get that from every night. But if you can play defense like this, you can win a lot of games. So,
Man, Penny is like one of the most hopeful person that you want. He always he's a glass half full type person, and he's looking for always the positive. But when you go into a game with Temple and you putting all your basket in Bradshaw, and he goes out 10 minutes into it, you have to adjust. And then, you know, he just did, it's almost like March Madness, survive in advance. He did what he had to do to get through that situation. So when you saw the second game when they came out, to me, when they played Sunday, that was that's the best game they played this season. They played on course, they played with rhythm, they played with pace. Everybody said, oh yeah, UTSA is a bad team, but when we played UNLV was a bad team, we looked like a bad team. But when they played against Texas San Antonio, they looked like a really good team. It made them look really bad.
Yeah, so a lot of times when I hear a coach say, hey, we got to play by committee, we got to win by committee, what that tells me is
he ain't got no superstar.
I got no stars.
Right, that's what that means.
You know, I ain't got nothing in
and he knows that.
Yeah, he knows it, we all know it. But what I've noticed, I'm listening to that sound, is he's saying as long as we'll defend our yard and rebound and play with those are effort issues.
Exactly.
Those are not skill issues.
Right.
Those are effort issues.
Right.
Are you continuing to see the effort issues?
The effort issues, I hate to say this, but when you remove Bradshaw from the lineup, the team looks so much better because they played as a unit and they weren't trying to focus on one person to carry the team. But when Bradshaw's not there, this last game, it's just like everyone knew what their role was and they stayed in their lane and do their thing. And the effort and energy was there because if you bring effort and energy every night, you always have a chance to win.
Just to clarify on Bradshaw, he left in the first half of this Temple game with a hamstring injury. He did not return. He's currently day-to-day, what Penny is saying. And the thing, I kind of feel for Bradshaw because we talked about it on the program last week, he's finally a guy who's finally starting to come around.
Correct.
He finally had the performance that you wanted in that FAU game. I know it was in a losing effort, but he's finally starting to kind of deliver the investment that Penny made in him because I think he's, not to be pocket watching, but he's probably the most expensive player on that Tigers basketball team.
Yeah. Ain't no doubt about it. He is.
The bigs cost money.
Yeah, the bigs cost money. And besides, when he showed up, you know, it was kind of, this whole team was going to be centered around P.J. Haggerty that went to Kansas State, you know, and then he left late in the game. And by the time he said he wasn't coming back to Memphis, he was going to Kansas State, that just put everything in a loop, and all the big name guys was already gone. See, one thing about the transfer portal, if you hit on the transfer portal, you're really good, but if you don't hit on the transfer portal, it's really bad. That's one of the reasons Lane Kiffin left Ole Miss, because he don't want to live with the transfer portal. He want to live through talent going up. And when you live in year to year with the transfer portal, not only do the fans not know, you don't know what the chemistry issue is going to be when it happens, and that's been the biggest problem with this team, chemistry.
We just had this conversation last week, which was when you're living this transfer portal life, not only do you not know about chemistry, but you really don't know how the dude is going to perform at your level.
Exactly.
Until you get him. So you get a guy from a lower level, and he was a stud there or whatever, but then now when you put those, now he's playing in the American with you and he's got to deliver every night, you don't know if you're going to get that. And I feel like that's what Penny's had a lot of, is guys he thought were going to bring it every night, and he doesn't, and he's not getting it from him every night. So now we're in this, You said it great, survive in advance.
Right.
Can you survive in advance an entire season?
Oh, no, you don't have to worry about it. We all know what this season is. It's 3 games in Birmingham. It's 3 games in Birmingham. You
That's
go
that
3
point.
You
games
still
in
need a
Birmingham.
decent enough seed, right?
No, you don't.
Yeah.
Just lost to FAU.
You don't. Look, when they come out of Birmingham, they'll be a 12 seed. You go into 12 wins, and you go from there. Just get a 12 seed.
Just get 12 seed.
Yeah.
If you can't win in the tournament if you're not in the tournament.
That's true.
So you go to
Exactly.
Birmingham, win the tournament, get a 12 seed, and then go somewhere. Hopefully, you can get an upset.
Get a decent matchup.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's all about matchups.
So now I guess what we're looking forward, and we feel like we say this every week, obviously they're not going to get in at large. They got to win in the conference. So now looking forward, it is, I guess, to try to get one of those top 2 seeds in the conference tournament so they can have a not as difficult path, right?
Right. But even if they don't get that, you just pretend it's like the last years in the conference. You had to go 3 games to win 3 days. They've done it before, and they have won 3 games in 3 days before. You just go out. The most important game is that first game, and once you get that first game, everybody on the same footing. And one thing we're gonna have about it is it's only 2 teams you got to worry about. You got to worry about yourself. And UAB because they're at home, because Memphis fans gonna go down there and travel. But I have no doubt that Penny knows that this team can win the tournament.
So the issue that I would say that, and it came across last year, we were getting to the NCAA tournament and they were getting ready to play Colorado State, and I said they're not gonna win. And everybody's like, well, what? They've got the matchup. They can win that game. And I said, look at their record. They've never won more than 7 games in a row in the season. Mm-hmm. And they were on there. They'd already won their 7.
Strictly off of that?
Yes, because listen, I'm gonna tell you, people are creatures of habit.
It wasn't because PJ Haggard had checked out.
Yes. But I told you. But I knew.
Hey, listen.
But I knew logistically the odds of them. They were already on the back end of their winning streak, and so this team doesn't have an extended winning streak. They're 1 win, 2
So you still
losses.
say their best basketball is still ahead of them?
So what I'm saying is when they got to win the tournament, yes, but then they won't have time to reset that win-loss column because they've got to win it. So they've got to have a phenomenal stretch to be able to make any kind of run in the NCAA tournament. Just because they're not winning 3, 4, 5 games in a row and then losing 1 or 2.
Yeah, but it ain't what you did here. It ain't how you start. It's how you finish.
We could say that, and I agree that how you're playing in March matters, but what I'm saying is you got a team of guys who aren't consistent.
But don't forget some tournaments that teams with losing record go into the tournament and win 2, 3 games in the tournament.
And get
Like
hot.
NC
Yeah,
State.
get hot.
We saw NC State do it.
It's
You
all
can't
about
get hot.
all about getting hot at the
You
right
can't
time.
get hot.
Yeah.
It's all about getting hot at the right time. If you get hot at the right time,
You can beat anybody.
Everybody gonna forget about the regular season. They're gonna say, "Oh, we made a run to the Sweet 16."
But you got to get hot first.
you got to get in before you do anything. You got to get in.
To Ruben's point with what he talked about earlier about adjusting, a guy who we've kind of seen that is Sincere Parker.
Yes.
Came from McNeese State. They had their kind of Cinderella run getting the upset last year, and then he came to Memphis. A guy who, like we thought, Penny probably expected him to be one of the leaders of the team. He's another one who has kind of not had the start that you expect. But you look at these last 2 games, like you look at the Temple game, that he was 10 points. He was second in scoring right behind Givens. And then this UTSA game, scored a season-high 22 off the bench. So what do you kind of feel about Sincere Parker? Do you feel like he's one of the guys who now you're starting to kind of get what you want out of him, just kind of like whip Bradshaw?
I've been very critical of Sincere because he did not believe in passing the ball. He was when the ball go to him, it was like a hole. But in the last few games, he's been passing the ball. He didn't get an assist in the last game, but he wasn't ball dominant. And just once again, his hand, it died. He started passing the ball. If you pass your ball to your teammates gonna help play for you. But if you don't pass your team the ball, they're gonna start playing offense and defense, and that's gonna kill the team. What he did in the last couple games, he has started not being so I, and it's all about we. So that expanded. I think he is one that wants his ball in.
Well, so to further that point, you can't be ball dominant if you're not dropping a bunch of buckets.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so when you have a ball dominant, nothing drives me crazier than a point guard who can't pass.
Yes.
Boy, that drives me insane.
Yeah.
You dribble the ball for 20 seconds of the shot clock, and then now suddenly we're in pick and roll action because we have to for the last. It drives me insane. But yes, to your point. As that starts to happen, you're right. Other people start to get more engaged, and we all know this. Basketball players getting their feelings fast.
Yes.
Let a shooter be open. Let a post player have a great seal and don't get him the ball.
Yeah.
Just let him touch it.
And if you don't, They ain't playing no defense.
Exactly.
I'm jogging back down because I'm mad.
Yeah.
So hopefully you're right. Hopefully that does upturn the corner for everybody.
And the person they really need to get in, other than Bradshaw, is Zachary Davis. Zach Davis has a really, really, really high ceiling, but sometimes I think he get in his head and he plays out of his comfort zone.
Yeah.
He don't do the little things that he needs to do. He's just too up and down and consistent.
Do your job.
And because Penny said, when he said we got to play by committee at the beginning of the season, that was a red flag right there. Because when you playing by committee, that means you don't know who you're going to in clutch situations, unless you're playing situational basketball, in which Penny does do that. But I give Doug all the credit. He's been the one. He's been the one consistent player all the time. He's just doing the best he can, and to me, I think he's played over his expectation this year.
Rich, you are, to your point, you are the one all season long who's been saying they got to find a guy.
They have, and I'm glad you brought up Doug because we heard from him. If we can roll the clip for what Doug said after the UTSA game.
I feel like the energy, we in practice we made an emphasis of our bench, to help pick us up. We sometimes look over, they're kind of dead. So I feel like the energy just across the board carried over, and we prepared for this team just how we prepare for any team, and it showed tonight. We didn't overlook them, and our mindset was to dominate. And I feel like we did that.
Does that basically sound like what y'all have been saying, that now this team is taking it more serious now and like bringing that energy? Like I've always said, this team has always been defensively capable.
Yes.
Like I feel like they can hang with anybody just on defense alone. It's just offense, and I think it's a mental thing. But now, like we said, Doug being the tip of the spear of that guy, he's starting to emerge as the guy. He's not PJ, and I don't think we should hold him to that standard of being PJ, but he does enough to still inspire the guys behind him, like Sincere, like Curtis.
And he hits big shots.
Yeah, he does.
He hits big shots.
In the beginning of the year, Doug was trying to force it. He was trying to attack the rim and go there. But now he knows his teammates, he's finding the open man. He's putting those guys in a situation where they can be the best they want to be. So Doug is the quarterback. He's the penny on the floor. So he is the glue. As long as he's keeping everyone happy on the floor, I think this team has a really high ceiling.
All right.